Listen, I was going to attempt to explain the Obamacare thing that I was about to attempt to explain, and then it dawned on me that Craig, the Obamacare lawyer, could give us the brief, pithy version of the issue, the doc fix and the disingenuousness of the budgetary numbers back in the day. Hey, Craig.
Good morning.
I believe you know Jack.
I do. I think the breaking story there was that the gentleman farmer has an art studio.
Yeah, well, it's for the kids.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Is the easy chair usually in there, or did you drag it in there for this?
This is a large art studio. So down on this end, it's my stuff.
Do you do the painting where you get completely naked and smear your body with paint, then roll around on the canvas?
No, but the kids have an easel and get to paint out here, and they have so much fun.
Oh, that's great.
It's so dang cute.
Don't have to worry about the mess.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of messes, Craig, describe to us the gyrations that were gone through to keep the cost of Obamacare under $1 trillion.
Yeah, that Gruber tape couldn't have come out at a better time because you and I were chatting about this Friday.
For folks just tuning in, Jonathan Gruber, one of the architects of Obamacare, was talking to some eggheads and explained that, it was really important we keep it obscure what was actually in the act. That's the only way it would pass. So that's what he's referencing. But go ahead.
And you and I had actually talked about a portion of that on Friday. About a decade and a half ago, both political parties basically got together and said it would be a good idea if we could rein Medicare in. Medicare is the insurance for the old folks, and it's going to bankrupt our country eventually. So Congress and the president, and I think it was either Clinton or Bush, it was that far back, and had said, look, yes, we will sign this, we got to do this. And so what the doc fix said was, if we don't do things to put real reforms into Medicare and actually reduce what it's costing us, then we're just going to start cutting what we pay doctors by 1% here, 1% there, 1% here, 1% there over time, right? Well, of course.
So was that a real long-term plan, or was that one of those deals that this will force us to act? Because this is so stupid, like the sequester, nobody would let this happen.
Kind of. It's kind of the latter.
Okay.
It was kind of, 4 or 5 years from now, we're going to cut what we pay doctors 3%. And of course, we already don't pay the doctors quite enough in Medicare, and so that will force us to act. Exactly.
Right.
So the first cut comes along. And the political parties look at each other and go, well, we haven't solved this, so let's sunset it for 6 months or a year, right? So they pass an act, president signs it, and they kick it down the road 6 months.
So they don't make the cuts.
They don't make the cut, and they say, well, we'll get that in the next session. Well, this has been going on, guys, since the late 90s, early 2000s. Everybody's got their grubby hands on it. Both parties have totally abandoned their responsibilities here. And this particular cut that is automatically going to kick in has just been getting kicked down the road year after year after year after year. Okay, so when Obamacare comes up to pass in late 2009, early 2010, the drafters of Obamacare knew that, there's a doc fix cut coming, later this year. And at that time, the doc fix cut would have been something like 23, 24%. So imagine if you look at Medicare, which is one of our top 3 expenditures in the country, and you say, well, we're just going to cut that by a quarter.
So they'd kicked the can down the road so many times, each little cut had amounted now to about 25%.
Wow.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And so when they passed Obamacare, the CBO, which has to operate under the laws as they are, had to look at it and say, well, the law is that Medicare is going to get cut 25% 7 months from now. So they factored those cuts into Obamacare, and that was all part of the voodoo they did to make Obamacare look like it was going to cost less than $1 trillion.
Right. So in a world where they don't dare cut 2% because it would be poison at the polls from the old people, the assumption to pay for Obamacare was that we're going to suddenly cut Medicare by 28%.
Yeah, it's 28 today. Yeah. It's 28, 29 as of today, but it was like 24 back then.
Okay, so we're going to cut Medicare by 25%, and that's how we keep the total cost of this under $1 trillion, which is just unicorn riding fantasy stuff.
Oh, it's so disingenuous. Now, there were CBO people that were interviewed, but of course this is so wonky and in the weeds, nobody understood it. There were CBO people that were interviewed and said, yeah, we get that this isn't right, but this is how we have to score the bill. We have to assume these cuts are going to occur because Obamacare would have been immediately something like 150% more expensive had they scored it according to human logic.
Okay. So what's the true cost? Not just under $1 trillion, probably more like what?
I think at this point, with all the things that have gone on and all the other revenue things that have been cut out, I think we're looking at probably $2 to $2.5 trillion.
Wow.
Lovely.
Well, here's probably a good place to
and growing.
This is probably a good place to throw this in. Washington Post over the weekend, Greg Kessler, he's the guy that gives out the Pinocchios for when politicians say things that aren't true.
Right.
Barack Obama last week said that Obamacare is responsible for a slowdown in health care costs, and that was given 3 Pinocchios, which, is a lot, because 4 is the most you can get. 4 is just an out-and-out lie, and he got 3 Pinocchios on that.
And I reckon they held back the 4th Pinocchio because for people getting subsidies, it has helped. Or at least,
maybe. I'll tell you, the slowdown in healthcare costs has a lot more to do with the fact that the economy is struggling, and the Obamacare made your deductibles and your copays bigger, so people that actually need care are foregoing care.
Well, that's what I wondered. My deductible is so much higher this year.
Yeah.
The way I handle health care, or our family does, is different than it used to be.
Right. Yeah. I suppose if you made throat cultures $1 million, you would lower the expenditures on throat cultures because absolutely nobody would ever get one.
Right. And there's really good literature on that. I mean, there's been numerous economists look at that over the last 3 years and show that it is not Obamacare. Our slowdown actually started in 2007 when the economy crashed, and the slowdown has just continued since then. And a slowdown in healthcare still means it's going up twice as fast as inflation. But.
So that literature, that really good literature you're talking about, is that like the mommy porn, or is it like young adult adventure stuff? Like
it's my freedom porn. It's my freedom porn.
Exactly.
And what do they do all day, Jack? They skin beavers and hunt for beavers, and they find their food and they make homemade water filters.
That's what you do if you live off grid?
That's what they do all day if they live off grid, yeah.
And they eat the beaver. They use every part of the beaver.
They use every part of every animal they gather. That's
hey,
right.
You're a healthcare expert. What are we going to do about Medicare? I mean, what are we going to do about it? We're going to have way more old people in 20 years than we got now.
Soylent Green, kill the old.
Well, an unpopular thing that everybody knows would fix it is if we actually raised the age of it up to something like 68 or 70.
What is it currently?
65. 65.
So once you're 65, you get all your health care paid for?
Yeah, you get a very substantial portion of it. You still have some deductibles and copays, but you get a big chunk of it paid for. And if you raise that age to 70, which, as you guys know, is very logical in light of the fact that we live so much longer, you do a lot to fix Medicare pretty quickly.
Boy, but neither party can run on that.
It'd be hard. You'd have to have some sort of a Bowles-Simpson compromise that nobody would stick to eventually.
All right, you kick it down the road. All right, Craig, the Obamacare lawyer. Hey, Craig, thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
All right, see you later.